Well, welcome. Tonight is the conservative view. Get a perspective that is interesting. We've done the liberal view, now we'll do the conservative view, and somewhere in between, someday we'll have a medium view. But why don't we start with introductions?
Thank you. My name is Chris Wilson, current school committee chairman and also a planning board member and 20-year resident of Milford.
Ed Bertarelli, about 40-year town meeting member on the Geriatric Authority and the Library Board and the Milford Housing Authority.
It seems like the last couple days, all the oxygen in the room has been taken up by changing the Speaker of the House. One of the most profound comments I heard from a Republican was, okay, now we have no leader, but we still have the same problems we had yesterday. What is going on?
Well, the Speaker largely, although the Speaker has an iron grip on the House as far as the agenda, when he appoints committees, Nancy Pelosi would be an example of a very strong Speaker. People forget about her reign of how many years it was. She really had people dissented, and whatever. She was a pretty strong Speaker. McCarthy, margin wasn't enough for him in the last election for him to rule or govern decisively, because the margin was 6 or 7 votes. And if it had been 27, there would have been some breathing room. You would have probably traditionally you would have had conservative Democrats come over on certain votes, but there aren't many conservative Democrats anymore because they've all been eliminated as the parties have gone off to, they're more right or more left wing sort of thing. So the blue dog Democrats, they used to call them, there aren't many of those around. So we're faced with an issue where he was sort of weakened from the beginning, and he left him victim to these, mini terrorist moves of some of the right wingers, like that congressman from Florida, Gates,
Yeah.
who's facing his own serious charges dealing with guns, underage women, drugs, and whatever, that the House is dilly-dally on investigating, so it's left it open. Now, to say if he was gone, the problem would have gone away, and I don't think that's the case, but again, McCarthy was weakened by the closeness of the vote.
Right, the former speaker, right, he made deals in order to get those votes. And
Yeah.
when those deals didn't come together, he
Yeah.
kind of were
Yeah.
swayed away
Yeah.
from those
Yeah.
deals, right?
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
Well,
the
you remember-
revolt happened.
The biggest one they said is this idea that one person can bring you up. That's insane.
Yeah, right. That's like the Polish Parliament between the wars. One member of Parliament could veto something. So what happened? Nothing.
Nothing.
So
But you turn around and say, you got 6 or 8 rogue senators or ultra uber right
representatives.
representatives. And if I look at Mr. Gates and say, what has he accomplished? Because if he was a strong contributor, a leader, he had ideas, the only thing I've seen him do is urinate on everybody's bushes.
Oh, well, we could get him on that.
Well,
Get him
no,
on
but
video.
you know what I mean. All he does is walk around and
Right, yeah, he's
Yeah.
a loud
Yeah.
voice that
Yeah.
has not accomplished
Yeah, yeah.
anything.
anything,
Yeah.
right?
And-
So
and you
for
take-
whatever
yeah.
reason, people are listening. Why?
Yeah. And you take on the other side the squad. That's the equivalent.
Hmm.
And my pet, as always, is anyone who listens to the show, the media today are a disgraceful part of society. And Trump, at least Trump is, when his ranting about the media is one thing, they only portray the extremes, whatever they think is going to be headlines. So they're not going to come and interview moderate Al Correa, who wants to work across the aisle. They're going to interview Chris Wilson, who thinks the only good member of the opposing party is one who's in the hospital or something. That's what they like, and they want to hear punchlines. They want to hear, catchphrases that they play, and so they're not uplifting the public with information. Elon Musk is very accurate in his portrayal of the media. He's very decisive in cutting. That today they're, as a friend of mine used to call them, they're repeaters. They're not reporters. They just take the loudest voice and amplify it and go, did you hear what they said? Now, what do you think about
It's
that?
that soundbite, right?
Yeah.
They're looking for that
It's
soundbite.
like the Ryder Cup, where there was a little incident, people passions are high, whatever, they're playing in Europe, the fans are boisterous, rude, nasty, insulting, obscene, and some players had an inter thing, and the next day it was as though the Ryder Cup was only about this argument these two players had. They negated the golf, they negated everything. Even sports commentators are doing it. It's like in football, the bad actor gets all the attention. Yeah, good, and they
But now
play to it.
you turn around and say, what? There's 8 people that are stirring the pot.
Well, yeah, exactly.
What do they expect to get out of it? That somebody will be more conservative than McCarthy?
No, they want favors. In the day, if you had a margin of 20, if as I said at the beginning, if McCarthy had a 20 or 30 seat margin, he could afford to marginalize them and give a favor here, give a favor there, and make sure the number didn't increase like the Democrats do. I mean, there's always been unrest in the especially the House, because it's so big, 435 members. So
And it's so equal, right?
Yeah.
So now,
Yeah.
those 8 members have that swing vote
oh,
power,
they're
right?
like 80
But now,
members.
if I'm a Democrat,
Uh-oh.
why do I want, God bless you, why do I want McCarthy taken out? I'm not going to get anybody more liberal.
Well, that doesn't speak well to Hakeem Jeffries, who was a radical. Pelosi probably would have played this a little differently, but Hakeem Jeffries, who no one analyzes, if you look at the New York delegation from the city, they're crazies. I mean, there's no other way to describe them. I mean, there's the man who pulled the fire alarm, who was a revolutionary socialist.
He was
There's-
going for the
there's-
door handle.
Yeah.
No, he just got confused.
Confused,
But
yeah.
these people are coming from districts where it's impossible not to get reelected no matter what you do if you're of one party or another. Mr. Gates in Florida represents a district where he could do anything and get reelected. And some of the people in Massachusetts and New York, they could do anything as Democrats. And there's no way they're going to. AOC, for example, she's never going to be defeated unless she just decides never to go to the district again and ignore it. They're never going to be defeated because the districts are all gerrymandered, to polarize the group. So if Al is the guy who gets up and says, hey, let's compromise with the other side, they're going to look at you like you have the flu or something. I mean, they're going to go, what's this guy talking about? We don't compromise anymore. We just throw grenades at one another. That's the problem. And it affects both parties.
I was going to say, but both parties are guilty of that.
Oh, well, there's no,
Exactly. Congress is a dysfunctional family, right? They can never agree. It's
Yeah.
always about having a
Yeah.
majority. There's no reaching across party
No,
lines
no.
to actually
Yeah.
come up with something
Yeah.
that is beneficial to the American people. I mean, think about when I say dysfunctional family, and this is something we didn't talk about pre-show, but look at Fetterman, right? And just look at how he carries himself.
look at him. Oh, no,
Right,
do I have
exactly.
to?
Right? Think about how does he present himself
Oh.
to the American public, right? So he shows up in sweatshorts and a sweatshirt
And a hoodie.
and a hoodie, right?
Oof.
And he's supposed to be a lawmaker representing the United States and representing his.
That was
his
even
state,
too much for
right?
the Democrats.
So right, exactly. How embarrassing is it? So when you look at dysfunction overall, he's the leading case of it, and they appeased him by relaxing. Well,
Briefly, yes.
they appeased him by allowing him to vote from the doorway
Yeah.
for the longest time. Then they relaxed the dress code rules. So, I mean,
And when you can't, and it's been unclear even, and he actually one day presided over the Senate in this outfit, and he really can't speak in an articulate way for because of his medical reasons, and he's presiding over the Senate up there in a hoodie.
right, his attire alone it's embarrassing. It's 100% embarrassing.
Why do you think he does that?
Doesn't
Well, I guess the question is if he's doing it for attention, he's getting it, but it is negative attention. But I don't know. I never really considered.
See,
the
to
why.
me, it's children who do bad things to get attention.
No.
Now, the question is he leveraging that attention to get something? And him and the Gates and the Maxines of the world and the AOAC LMNOPs of the world, I don't see them getting
They're doing nothing.
anything.
Maxine Waters, as you just brought up, was the precursor of this. She called old Bush a war criminal. She's ranting and raving for years, and no one touches her because if you say anything, you're a racist. She plays that card incessantly, and you see, Chris just brought up a good point about the inability to do anything. And a decade and a half of no immigration laws or changes, but in addition, unlike when Trump was in, crossings of the borders declined to next to nothing. Now look at it, and that's all you have to say. And if you listen to CNN, when they have to, they put the border on. MSNBC, even the mainstream, which are now basically ABC, CBS, and NBC, are pretty much to the left. You only hear about the border if someone's killed, and it almost seems like it's the border guard's fault, but it isn't, because Mexico is basically, the government there is totally ineffective.
But Ed, there are a lot of people out there who don't like Trump,
Well, of course.
but like the effects of Trump.
Well, they want it both ways.
Well, but see, to me, if he would have kept his mouth shut,
Well, it's a big if.
no, but
That's not
seriously,
an if.
If the sun is going to
That's
come
a-
up tomorrow.
That's a no way.
but I mean, do I like the way Trump carried himself? No. But do I like, well, inflation's down to 5%.
Yeah,
But it was 2, right? Gas has come all the way down to $3.90 a gallon, but it was $2.20 a gallon.
but the media, again, Al, they're not interested in the history. They want the and they don't like them anyway. Even Fox News, there's who in the media, maybe One America News or Tucker Carlson or someone, no one likes him. I mean, not that there's not a lot not to like, but you know, this whole thing that they're doing now with the prosecutions all over the country with these political prosecutors whose cases are a joke in some cases. So it's a
Well, some of the stuff amazes me because I'm not a lawyer. I don't study the law, but I know the statute of limitations. It would seem to me the first thing I would check is, can I prosecute?
why? That's silly. Why ask that?
So you bring up about a lot of charges that not necessarily are valid, but they get the attention. of
What
the
what
media.
what they say when they throw stuff against the wall and you see what sticks?
Yeah.
That's their MO, because prosecutors, I mean, you know what's going on here.
Well, it seems like the objective is to keep him so worried about his flanks that he's not focusing on his front. He's getting attacked from all sides. How can you run a campaign?
He doesn't have to.
No,
You
exactly.
think?
No,
As of right now, he doesn't. I mean,
no.
if the polling numbers are valid, right? But as of right now, the infighting from number 2 down, right, are they're not even in the same game.
Is
right?
there a
He's
number
not even-
2?
No,
In my mind, there's
No.
a couple and a bunch of rabble,
right.
bunch of noise. I
Well,
shouldn't
but
say
they're
rabble.
actually, I
Two,
mean,
maybe
any,
three.
any one specific one would be an improvement over what we have in the White House. I'm sorry. Let's put it that way. So even that governor from North Dakota, who was not, well, yeah, but the point is, a self-made billionaire, a man who, well, at least his governmental principles are not as misguided as the one we have running. So that's what I'm saying. It isn't that they're rabble, hardly. It's that they're not going to get any voice because.
Yeah, rabble's a bad word.
Well, yeah.
I just hear noise.
Well,
Just
but why wouldn't
noise.
you? But
Yeah, but I think you could. I would push noise as far as how that debate went.
No,
Or
noise as
same
far
way.
as when I listened, 2 people came out strong in my mind. Nikki Haley and DeSantis.
Right.
And after that, I couldn't pick out one from another.
no,
Yeah.
but watch, and this is where people are going to say, "Hey Ed, you're old and you're getting paranoid." Okay, anyway, I'm more paranoid. Watch how the media started on DeSantis from the beginning, and Trump helped because he was perceived as the candidate who could win. A good resume from a big state, a Marine, Yale, da 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 da. Everything, and then you had media feeds with Chris Christie on, who, in my book, any Republican who goes on CNN as almost a columnist is basically what game are they playing, because their ultimate goal is to discredit the party anyway, so you're basically a tool in that. But I watched how they started to pick on DeSantis, not in just in the debates, but the media portraying him, because he was I think the media, be careful what they wish for, but the media want Trump to run, both for their ratings and the fact that they feel, and the Democrats feel, that he is the more easily defeatable candidate, because he can't segue away from his own problems to be, and the public has shown, 70-something% want neither of them to run. That's the key
Well,
thing,
right,
neither
yeah.
Biden nor Trump. And that's
I gotta
important.
tell you, I would rather not see a choice of either of them.
Well,
Correct.
you're not alone.
You know, realistically,
And that's 70-something%.
when I saw them attack DeSantis because he shipped people, women, I'm a sanctuary city. I'm making public
You
that I'm
should
a
be welcoming
sanctuary
them.
city. I'm saying, come here.
Until you want to.
But now all of a sudden that you're coming here, you're saying, and it seems like in the
Nay,
last
nay.
few months, even the Democratic governors, the Democratic mayors, are turning on the administration.
Yeah, but they're not, but the because of the media, the public has not been portrayed enough to say, like the governor of New York, who was hopeless. I mean, she's not only hopeless as a politician and as a governor. Even she says it's the federal. She doesn't say Joe Biden.
No, they try and change it.
So this
Right.
the federal government's
It's
to
the federal,
blame.
yeah.
Well, Hochul is saying it's the feds. They have to
Right.
fix this.
Well, they do.
Our
Wait a
own
minute.
governor said it, and our own governor wants us to open up our homes, right? So it's like, open up your homes, right? But in a sense, we do, right? We open up our towns, we open up our facilities, so we're helping, there's no doubt about it. But again, I always say, it comes at a cost, too. So yeah, is it a federal issue? Yes, but it's at a cost at a local and a state
Well,
level.
you know,
So you can't say, come on in, or stay down south where they're better served.
Well,
right?
you
Like,
can't.
That's-
you-
that's
it's
the
not
point.
fair to turn around and say, Abbott, you bear the brunt of all of
Which
it.
he's done for millions of immigrants.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. When you say open up your homes, I had close to 10 families living with us when I was a kid. I find it hard to remember a time when my father didn't sponsor
Yeah.
a family legally.
Right.
But when we built our last house, my father built the foundation, and my mother went on a tirade and said, "Stop." He goes, "Stop what?" "Don't build anymore. Flat roof." And it was like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about? There's 2 bedrooms downstairs.
That's it.
One for us, one for my son. That's it. I've sponsored 9 or 10
So she was
families.
going to short circuit this right at the beginning.
It says, I've sponsored 9 or 10 families. I've done my duty
Yeah.
to help
Yeah.
people from the old country.
But the thing right now is, if the immigration had been in an orderly, small way, not at the border, but through the proper channels, the networkings of families, because people generally come here and they have a network, would have worked, okay? But now what's happening, and it's important to point this out, when it's 250,000 people a month crossing the border, the fact is now the bureaucracy and the government and the entrepreneurs and the confidence men and everything else get their paws on these people, and it's how do we make millions of
Do you
dollars?
think people are taking advantage of the
Well,
situation?
the point is, it's happening in every city. It's happening. Go to LaGuardia Airport. Excuse me, O'Hare Airport.
O'Hare.
It's at all the airports. It's at Logan too. It's everywhere. But go to
Well, I
New-
heard O'Hare being referred to as Little Caracas
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, but just go to New York, and you have a hotel that's been on its last legs in a neighborhood. You know, was a good hotel once, and now people don't want to stay there anymore. What's the best deal in the world? You give that hotel to, quote, a agency employed by the federal
And they pay
government
top dollar.
to house immigrants at $10,000, $8,000 a month.
But you know the thing that bothers me
Well,
is when I heard that they were clearing out American veterans, homeless veterans, to make room for the immigrants.
there aren't words to describe that.
That's just, wait a minute, here's a man or a woman who risked their life for my freedom, and you're telling them, I'm sorry, we don't care about you.
What does that say about the people who did it? What is that? Well, do we use the word evil or bad? I guess we do, don't we? Because we throw it around at people, but that's probably the worst one of the worst things you could ever do. Think about it.
That's the definition of evil.
Yeah, that's the definition of evil. That isn't anything else. So, and the fact is that's not even reported.
And you mentioned it before. You can't blame the people. I've said it a number of times that I don't know what I would do if I couldn't feed my family, or if my family was in danger from gangs and.
But we don't know the facts here. And allegedly this is happening, but also when they're coming, they're being used by the Mexican government and the cartels. So we are basically funding through the Biden at the border billions of dollars to the cartels, who then are turning it to ship fentanyl and poisons into the country. So it's basically they're paying for our destruction in a way. So the money they're paying to the cartels to smuggle them over is basically being used to undermine our own country, because the cartels want to sell. And,
Well, let's face it, the cartels are in a negative business. They're not doing anything positive for anybody but themselves.
and even
When they're selling heroin, when they're selling fentanyl, everything they're doing, when they're trafficking young kids.
Well, and if our border is so porous, then there is going to be human
there
trafficking.
isn't a border.
There is going to be drug trafficking, right? So by being so open on the border, there's that human factor that we all agree we're trying to help people, but what about those other factors, which is the human trafficking and the drug trafficking?
Well, when you say porous, the definition of porosity is that something is seeping through.
Not flooding through.
It's not.
When you take away any barrier, then there is no porosity. It's infinite.
You also take away, which Biden has done in spades with that Mayorkas, who should be, again, impeached or sent somewhere, the border czar or whatever he is. You take away the incentive of these people at our border, our officials who risk their lives every day, to do anything. Why would you pause
Ed, why would you impeach Mayorkas?
Why? First
Why?
of all, because, number one, does he support his employees? No. Does he have the confidence of his
Is he
employees?
doing what he's charged to do by the leader of this country?
He has another responsibility beside that. He's been charged by Congress to do other things. So literally, what do you do then? You have to start somewhere. Do you start with Biden? No, that doesn't work. You start with him.
Because
The
I'm
point
sitting
is-
there thinking, this is not a stupid man. This is not an unintelligent
Wait
man.
a minute.
But, well, okay. But whatever, if he's being ordered by his boss to do something, it's like you as school committee picking on a teacher
Then
because that teacher is implementing what the superintendent tells him to do.
It's his. That's the classic thing in World War II. Al, they used to say, "I was just following orders." Let's get real.
But it is. It's true. It's me telling a principal, all right, no, I can no longer have you at this school. Go to the other schools and go check on the other schools. Well, now whatever school they're not at is slowly going to dissipate, right, and kind of run amok.
No, but
because that leadership's not there. So if there's
I
no
don't-
leadership on the border,
To me,
Then
the
it's
guy
all
is
fun.
an absolute disaster
There's no question.
because everything I see, I mean, when I hear that they're talking, Republican candidates talking about mobilizing the army to fight the cartels at our border,
Well, guess
posse
what?
comitatus.
Well, but guess what? Okay, but that's nice to say that in the real world, but we're at that stage.
But
I
then
have a
you're
question.
declaring war.
Where?
You're declaring war.
On the cartels.
Yes,
Well,
but then declare it. Come out and tell the
doesn't
American
work that
public.
way.
well, again, however many years ago, 6 years ago, whatever it was, when Trump began that whole border war issue, right?
Yeah.
And said we're going to build a wall from east to west here, west to east. It was this big topic. Now all of a sudden it's fallen off,
Of course.
right? But everybody's okay. There was the humanitarian factor of building the wall, right? But now it's okay. We've got 250,000 people coming in
A month.
But now we have no place for them.
A month.
But you're talking 6 million people.
Do you
Our
remember?
total population, sorry, but
Yeah.
our total population is 300 million. 2% you've increased the
And that's-
population.
And that's that's what they can track.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, think about it. We dodged a bullet 2 years ago. When you, Mr. School Committee, came and said, we're going to need $6 million incremental funding to deal with the fact that 1974, we graduated 222 kids out of Milford High, first year. 40 years later, we graduated 263. That's one incremental child. Tell me all about the demographics. Tell me all. It's one incremental child. And now all of a sudden, we're doing 200 a year incrementally. That's a
Right.
memorial school
Right.
every year we're adding.
But yes, but again, let's go back to Mayorkas for a minute. So you said he's only following orders. As I said to you, that didn't work in World War II. The question is, his men, he's lost the confidence of his men who risk their lives. He's not down at the border. He's in his office, wherever it is. And so when they're injured and whatever, it falls on him. When the policies occur where people are so disgusted and so disheartened that they have to retire, okay? It's the same way in the country where policemen are retiring in droves because the governments don't have any respect for law and order. So what do you get? You get roving gangs, and let's go through the cities. Philadelphia's flash mobs, LA flash mobs, San Francisco, we won't even get into that. Chicago, a zoo, okay? Unbelievable conditions.
What do you say when CVS is criticized for closing 9 stores in the inner city?
Criticized? Do you any criticism here?
Not from here, but you
No.
hear it in the media.
Oh, well, that's fine, but then why don't they go
Then
to
somebody
the
went as
CVS?
far as calling them racist
Well,
for
that-
closing it in.
Everybody's a racist that doesn't agree with them. Didn't you realize that? Everyone who disagrees with anyone else is a racist. Let's get real.
But you know,
That's a no.
if we shift over to crime, where does it stop?
It doesn't.
I mean, right now, I'm hearing DAs at certain cities will not prosecute you if you steal less than $1,000. And in California, they're passing laws that says you can't stop somebody from stealing.
Why are these people in office?
Well,
That
that's
shows you.
that's it.
Yeah, the only way to stop it is to get tough, right? But we know
Or
you
close your
hear-
store.
Right, or close your store, right? But you know that these big chain stores, they're telling their employees that if you see somebody stealing something, you just let that person go. Don't confront them,
Why
Right.
would you?
right?
Well, the
Don't confront
exposure.
them. Call the police
Yeah.
and let them deal with it. So we're now at a point where even an employee doesn't have to have any sense of.
Well, why would he if his life's going to be
Right,
in
if his
danger?
life's
Because
danger, but
if
of-
the police
of
are
support to the
yeah.
place that he's
But think
working.
about it. If I'm an employee and I take you on and you get hurt,
Right.
I get sued.
well, excuse me,
Right,
it gets worse than that.
exactly. It's
When you're brought to the station, Alvin Bragg in New York will let you go in basically 4 hours. So let's not even get to that stage. Why would you have, Duane Reade is a big store in New York. It's like the CVS, Duane Reade. Everything is locked up. So a friend went into the city and goes, the staff go, we ought to be locked up for working here. He goes, because he goes, it's like literally if someone wants a toothpaste or a toothbrush, they have to go to a lock cabinet. And this is in the best neighborhoods. Never mind the other neighborhoods. So
But think about it.
and they have a list of things. These drugs are not on the premises in giant print. Don't even bother, with what do you call it? Yep.
But you know, you think about it. We dodged the bullet. As I said, when you came, and I want to know what narcotics you guys were on, coming saying we need $6 million more.
Yeah, but that's
But it's a lot of money for a little town.
It is, well.
Now we got saved. We dodged the bullet because the state
Exactly.
came up with $7 million incremental dollars
but
2 years
you're
in a row.
talking, You're talking so inside baseball that with the lack of the media today in our town, really no one knows what you're talking about. The Daily News doesn't cover it. There's no WMRC anymore.
Yeah.
There's no Crier. So in a way, we're talking about a thing as it affects Milford, but the population in Milford, as we jump down a local, they have no grasp of knowledge of what is actually going on in the town. You hear it on the Facebook post. You hear it when the MCAS scores came out and Milford's were abysmal, to put it mildly. when they were ranking all the other schools. I mean, it was interesting to see that I guess Nipmuc Regional was a high school of high achievement. Interestingly, I think one of the Hopkins schools was too.
Hopkinton was number 3.
Yeah, but this.
But
We
again,
weren't as bad as what a lot of the social media critics have said.
but Chris,
So,
we
but
were
that's another-
if you pose it as an aggregate number. Because for the longest time, I've said if I went and you told me I was going to take tests in Mandarin in 2 years, I wouldn't do well. When you look at the distribution, the media is wonderful for painting Milford as a homogeneous group
What?
of kids.
Yeah.
When it comes to test scores, we get an average number, and our average is less than schools around us,
But the thing is,
towns around us.
the problem is.
But our top kids score as well or better than all the towns
Yeah,
around
but
us.
Exactly.
the problem is that it's very difficult, no matter how much resources you have, to teach when you have this large infusion of non-English speakers, okay? It takes at least a generation to come forward. But the other problem is, and this is the problem that I hear from regular people in Milford, is if you've got a middle functioning kid in Milford, an American kid, period, American as is, been here a while, parents been here a while, they get lost in the haze because the high performers will stand out. The middle performers, well, there used to be Blackstone Valley you might be able to go up to, but Blackstone Valley is now a specialty school, very, very sought after to get into. So there's subtle loss. So you hear a lot of frustration about my kid isn't learning anything because
I disagree.
well, you
Different
would,
conversation.
but I mean that's
No,
you're
but
not-
at
I
the
don't
end
think
of
you're
the
hearing
day,
I don't think
what
you're
you're
hearing
on
the
to
facts from
is
the,
when you bring 250 kids,
Yeah.
with
Right.
most of them requiring special attention, because they don't speak English,
Yeah.
they're coming from
yeah.
a place where they weren't in school, that burden has to come on the taxpayers.
100%.
But it also comes on the students and the
But
teachers.
Yeah.
You
Well,
can't
period.
fund it enough. We can't turn around
It's not a
right
money
now
issue.
and put 3 extra teachers in every
It's not
classroom.
basically, it's beyond a money issue because it almost requires, and you can't do this because of the quote laws that are out there today. It almost requires, well, the old system of taking kids
Right.
out and intensively drilling them into a high energy sort of education that's stimulating and not in the system. So in other words,
It still does exist, right? There are interventions that do occur.
I know,
in the
but
school
you're
day
talking
to
as a
class.
school committee member,
Right.
and maybe that's
Yeah, but
maybe
wait a
that's
minute.
not accurate in a certain way. Maybe
Chris,
the facts are out there that
The
are
fact
different.
is,
That's all.
you have a
Yeah.
jaundiced view of the school kids, just like I do.
Yeah.
The judges that are impartial are the colleges that our kids apply to. And when our kids are getting into top schools,
But
it tells me that somehow they're surviving.
But wait a minute, but that's college's economics, it's not just achievement, and it has been for a long time, okay? When you go to schools and see people driving up in their whatever car, their Land Rover or whatever else to drop Junior off, or they buy in a person an apartment, what you're finding now is the social strata of people who go to school, okay? Not the state schools, but others, it's shut off unless you're, say, an affirmative action, and I'm not saying that in any disrespect to affirmative action, or a minority student or whatever. There's a great group of kids who don't have a hope of getting into those schools because of economic factors. And that's the point. That Milford has, yes, they have a group of people who are doing very well, and the kids are going to go to school because it's a faction in the town. I mean, it's based on economics. So that to me is one of the problems. Is it'd be like why we have today. I just want to switch a minute. We have a desperate shortage of nurses in other professions. Why haven't we directed some of the state schools, community colleges or whatever, to become like a nursing college or whatever? Because the healthcare industry, which it is, needs medical technicians and nurses. It's a great career for anyone to be into. As you know, in the the nursing home industry, a number of people who work one-on-one with the elderly as aides or even as practical nurses are from foreign countries. If it wasn't for them, a lot of nursing homes would be in even bigger trouble. I mean, a lot of women from Haiti come up, or come from Brazil, and they take care of some very tough cases, and they're great.
But think about the school committee.
Yeah.
We went to the school committee and said we had a resident of Milford walk into the high school to the C wing and say, "Wow, this is neat. This looks
Yeah.
just like when I was here 40 years ago." And within 3 years, we put $500,000 into the biotech side.
Correct. Yep.
So
Yeah, but wait a
We-
minute.
Right.
But the point is, I don't get your point, because, yeah, it looked just like it did, because in all the years that it was built, and I can remember my parents going through economic hard times because of what the money the high school cost. It's never been renovated the entire time or maintained in the entire time. So what does that tell you? It tells me something that's pretty bad, because I'm sorry. I mean, I subbed up there for about 2 years, and the bathrooms are as I remember them. I mean, and that's pretty gross to think of. So,
But if
But what?
we identify issues,
Mhm.
like the fact that the science labs were antiquated,
yeah,
steps were taken.
Right, we invested $500,000 into this whole project, Lead the Way, biomedical engineering type of program,
Yeah.
so that's there. But I think going back, yeah, you're always going to have that top 10, 20% that, and more that are gonna go off to the college. You had talked about, kids that are,
In the middle.
on the IEPs that are
No,
gonna
no,
get.
no, no.
No,
I mean,
I'm just
I don't
saying,
mean
there are
on
kids
them.
on IEPs that are gonna get that additional support.
Yeah.
It's that, as
Of
you
course,
said,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
that middle of the road kid that works as hard as he can to get a C, right? He's not necessarily on that college path, so what are we doing? So
Yes.
I feel like we do support those kids, but maybe I'm wrong,
Yeah,
right?
I-
And maybe those parents need to be a bigger voice.
Well, no, I only say it because of the fact is, when now your attention is drawn to real issues, like
Yeah.
in Memorial School or others where the non-English speaking is over half,
Right.
you have a limited opportunity in any human classroom to do anything to do whatever, because you've got the people at a certain level who are going to get along. You've got the down here, and you've got this middle, and it's impossible given the figures, because Milford. There was a time, if we go back, and I don't know, we would find it in the media because there were just the media were the newspapers, but when you went back into Milford when the Irish immigration came over in the famine, the people who ran the town, they what you call the old New England Yankees, built schools all over. They built West Street, Oliver, Park Street, dozens of schools all over town, and they weren't necessarily for their kids. When the Italian immigration came, which was gigantic given the population of the town, other things were built, but they handled. Maybe some kids at the time didn't go to school either because the laws weren't the way that you just had to go to work. But they seemed to handle things in a certain way. But now, for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be working out as well. And I think part of it is, I think for me, everyone would benefit if you could get those groups who are coming and new, and before they got to the system, do, whether it's in the school or associated with the school, intensive working with them to teach them the fact of coming to school, things we assume, what books are, and then intensive common sense English language skills with instructors.
But you're
who are-
talking about following a set of rules.
Well,
It seems like, Milford seems to be an exception. I've said it a number of times that we had 2 demonstrations about our police force, both thanking them
Right.
in a positive way.
well, that's yeah.
Now you start saying, if I'm reading in the paper, if I'm listening to the news,
Yeah.
or on my iPad or my phone, that cities like Philadelphia,
Oh.
cities like Portland, New York City, that I can't blame the police for being demotivated. If you say, why am I going to risk myself
Why would you?
to arrest somebody when the DAs are saying, and these kids aren't stupid, if you steal less than $1,000, I won't arrest you
By
or
the way-
prosecute
By the
you.
way, if 10 kids steal. Now, but let's get back to the school in 1 minute. I just think there has to be there has to be, and this isn't said, it is said about a criticism, but it's also said, let's think outside the box. And Milford supposedly has done that in the past. There has to be a way and identify a certain group of people and get interventions with, whether it's the ministers, people in the community, and intensive training that are almost extra to the school, so that people get a jump start on coming in. But if you just put them in the system, it's going to be the same, because the system is designed for us.
Right.
It's not designed for people who don't
I think
understand.
the biggest hurdle is the law, right? So the law is, when they knock on the door, Supreme Court says we let them in. So,
No, I
and
just
we're
meant-
good with that too.
No, I just
but
meant-
I understand that
I meant the
you're
for-
looking for almost like a preschool.
I'm
type
talking
of
about
program.
even preschool would
to
be,
help assimilate
preschool
families into the
would
schools.
go up to the 6th grade. It would
No,
be,
that's what I mean.
it'd
When
be
I say
training.
preschool, I mean like a
Yes.
school before going into
Yes,
school.
yes.
Which, again, the hurdle is
No,
Massachusetts
no,
law.
not necessarily. If you're actually doing instruction, but
yeah.
it has
I
to
understand,
it has to
yeah.
require people who are not hypocrites about immigration.
Right.
Because what was it? The superintendent in Wellesley said that 23 immigrants came to the town. He was like, the schools. He was shocked. 23.
Right.
So now I'm sure, if I were to venture, that man has never voted for a conservative or Republican in his life.
Right.
But he was shocked. Well, why aren't the Boston Globe or people like that coming to the towns where immigration is real? Instead, they choose to do stories that are the way they are.
I mean, hey, we're lucky in Milford, right? We've built our infrastructure over years and years to be able to accommodate the influx and the need of, from the language standpoint and from the educational standpoint.
Well-
So we're very lucky. We're compensated from the state because of it,
still.
which is good, right? And can we get better? Of course, always.
But
100%.
money
But-
sometimes doesn't translate into.
And I get it, right?
No, but Ed, if you don't have the resources, if you all couldn't have hired 20 new ELL
Yeah.
teachers, that puts 30 kids in a classroom with one teacher.
There's no question. But the question comes down to is, and it's inescapable in the town, and it needs to be said, I said it at the last show, it's getting to the stage with the schools, no offense to anyone involved in the schools, but when people have a choice as to where they want their kids to go to school, it's not here. Because some people don't like that. And home sales in different neighborhoods in the town, I hear at a different level than maybe you guys or whatever, I hear about people selling and getting out because they don't like.
But yet the price of housing in
It doesn't
Milford.
matter. There's a housing
Is-
shortage. There's no housing stock
Did you
being
ever
built.
think you'd see an $800,000-$900,000 sale of a home in
You'd
Milford?
have to be nuts. So anyway,
Of a,
I mean-
of a 2,500 square foot split level.
I mean, you sit there and say, wait a minute, when I grew up, if you talked about $900,000, you could have bought Milford, they would have thrown in Hopedale and maybe part of
yeah, but
Mendon.
by the way, there used to be $19,000 houses, but the point is, the point is beside that is that there is this problem, and unfortunately, we can't deny it, we can't sugarcoat it, and we're not saying the people are at fault, but it's a problem.
Right.
And,
Well, I think
and
it
that's
goes
the,
back
it
to-
doesn't mean we have to be defensive about our schools or anything else, it means that Milford is changing in ways like the downtown illegal dentist and everything else that gets the publicity. It's very important that the public perception is there, especially since today there's very little media that covers the town. When we see the Milford Cable and that sporadic bi-weekly newspaper are really the only media we have, because the Daily News doesn't even cover Milford anymore, except sporadically.
Ed, the Milford Daily News had 2 weeks in the last 2 days in the last 3 weeks that they had something on Milford.
In the last 2 weeks.
3 weeks.
Two articles.
2 articles.
So that means
Pretty good.
0.75 articles a week.
I mean, I was amazed to see 2 papers with Milford
Well, one
mentioned
probably was
on.
the police chief.
And that was,
Robbie Tassino was
and then
one,
the dentist.
and then the dentist.
Yeah.
But at least it was two
Well,
articles
or
about
sort of
Milford.
that.
no,
I just love when I open that paper and it says local news,
Where?
Natick, Wayland. I was like,
they own, that chain owns, I would say, 50 newspapers in Massachusetts. So you go open the Quincy paper.
Yeah.
You open the Framingham paper. You open the Saugus paper. They're all the same layout with all the stories from the news services, and then sporadically, because they don't have any reporters today. I mean, does the Milford Daily News employ a reporter today? They used to come to school committee meetings
Right.
and whatever.
No.
Nothing now. No. They say they listen online, but they don't, obviously, because
I don't even think
and that's where there's
makes the bi-weekly paper.
when there's no attention. That's the same way with the town meeting whole thing. You know, you have all these people lamenting that people don't vote in town elections. Well, when you don't have any sense of community anymore, why would you vote in an election? Because you come to the town, there's nothing that talks about the political life of the town that gets you involved, that there's consequences to your vote. So unless it's a national election, you know, you probably don't go vote. And that's the way same with town meeting member.
Well, we had less than 10% of eligible voters turned out at the last election.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a scary movie.
Why? Well, it's at every town it's happening.
Well, it's not just Milford. I mean,
No, I'm not. Well, again,
I think, yeah, you can go down the road too. Campaigning's a lot different since COVID, too, now, right?
Yeah, but
Just
again,
don't
even
answer
before
doors,
COVID, the
it's hard to
elections were-
engage. Yeah, well, it was more, it was better. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, when I first ran for school committee, I could knock on doors and people answered doors. Now, you knock on a door, everybody's got a Ring camera and they don't want to deal with you, right? So, it's.
I am not a
It's-
missionary. I am
Right,
not a
so
robber.
it's a far
I'm
different
a fool who's running
landscape.
for office.
Right, exactly.
so if we take a step up, where is the primary going in your mind?
You mean the presidential? I mean, all that,
Yeah.
the campaigns? Well, on one side, the quiet side, which won't be covered, is whether Biden makes it to the election, because there's obviously more and more rumblings, which they are unlike ours. They have a very disciplined thing, but I think something may happen.
Is it really? I mean, all I've heard is maybe Newsom.
No, I'm not talking about
I mean-
that. No, wait a minute. Don't go to what the media think. I'm just saying an actual event might happen where then you'll see everybody come out of the woodwork, because there's nobody more ambitious than a junior Democratic politician who figures this is now or never. You know, and that's, you know what the political force is like. There'll be any number of senators who think they're the cure-all and end-all. And then on the Republican side, I mean, you're going to have, obviously, DeSantis seems to be going down a bit because of the negative media attention, but we'll see how he does in the election. And if Nikki Haley comes up, is it at the expense of Trump, or is Trump's 35% solid? And now what's happening in both parties, which because I read into some of the nitty-gritty, the Democrats and the Republicans are putting in winner-take-all primaries. So proportional representation wouldn't cover anymore. So say in California, you won 35%, your opponent won 30. You get all the delegates,
Okay.
rather than proportional. So that Biden's doing the same thing to shut off a campaign. So maybe some of the states that are very pro-Trump are steering the mechanisms at the nominating level and the state level.
Get those delegates.
Yeah, to get the delegates. So, but the question is, the two wide open things are, as you said, I thought it was almost approaching 73%. That figure in my mind who wanted neither of them to run.
Right. Because they asked, do you want to see a repeat?
Could you have
And it
none
was
of the-
almost three-quarters
Could
of
you have none of the above on the
I'd be-
ballot?
I'd be in that 3/4% that says no. I mean, definitely, obviously not Biden. I mean, there's just nothing about his political agenda that I agree with, you know, and I think that the Republican Party would be beneficial to move away from Trump.
Yes.
You know, and to just find
But again,
find that new face.
I really
You know?
believe the people who say 40% of the electorate are going to vote Democrat, no matter what.
Right.
40% are going to vote Republican. It's the 20% in the middle that you're fighting for,
Right.
because
that's
that's what's
right.
going to swing it.
And that's
You-
the 20%. If you took that 20%, 100% of the 20% agree neither should run.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, so.
Exactly. Right.
uh,
Yeah,
it-
they're just looking for
Yeah.
someone, a better
Yeah.
representative.
And it shows
to
you,
be the
yeah,
president,
and it
right?
shows you the discipline that even the left wing of the Democratic Party, which is very strong, which you don't hear about in the press. You hear about the right wing, but I mean, I'm going to guesstimate that 100 of their members in Congress would be called hard left, from the cities and whatever. Well, our delegation, for example, it's changed. You've got Richard Neal, who used to be somewhat conservative, who's sort of still there. Steve Lynch is okay, but he's always a target, and the rest of our delegation are,
Pretty set in their ways.
yeah. I mean, and lefty. Let's put it that way. Our new Congressman Alkin Klaus is amazed. Some of the stuff, emails you get from him are like, whoa. It's like immigration is a Republican problem, according to him. Okay. Anyway, maybe you should have him on the show and ask him. So I'm thinking Haley, because she's well spoken, but again, the media haven't gotten at her yet to rip her down. And that's what I say about the media. I don't think a Republican enters a conversation in a fair way with the media, because many of the media are already biased against them. And that we're not talking about Fox or anything.
Well, but I mean, most of the political science majors, the liberal arts majors, are not dead conservatives.
Well, they're also not even remotely conservatives.
No, but what I'm saying is, when you think about the kind of people who go into the media, you're already starting with liberals.
You're also talking about,
They're already left of center.
yeah, you're also talking about the wholesale, I don't even want to use the word, I'm thinking of the wholesale, what they've done to colleges where political correctness and have run amok. So when a conservative speaker comes to campus, he's spit at and scared off. And that's in, quote, some of the best schools. So just to the stage now where you wouldn't even dare appear at any of the Ivy League schools. Impossible. And the next level down, you wouldn't, impossible that you would go to them as a conservative speaker. You wouldn't be allowed to speak. What does that say?
But see, that amazed me when I heard people calling some of the speakers fascists, and they were trying to keep them from speaking. And I sat there and I said, but wait a minute, isn't fascism based on limiting free
Just
speech?
that, right, exactly.
No. It's like you call anyone, all the classic things. You throw out racism, fascism, all the isms, and by the time you're done, probably one thing we should talk about in another show, if we remember, is this whole thing of victimhood in the country. That through a combination of things, a lot of these really narcissistic groups of people who don't give a rat's rear about anyone else are victims. It affects the discussion on racism, reparations, everything. Everyone is a victimhood today in the greatest country in the world. Where, how is it that the people who trash the country, how do they explain that? How many people a month are trying to get into the country? I'm a little confused here. They should be trying to get out of the country, shouldn't they? But
No, but
Al,
Ed, I
is that
think you
right?
got to look at it the other way.
oh, what?
When you looked at certain countries in the world,
Yeah.
they had, we used to go to the DDR, socialistic countries had mechanisms to keep people from leaving.
Yes.
As far as I know, I don't know of any prohibition from me saying, I don't like America, there's a better country.
No,
I'm going to leave.
No, but the people who attack the United States in our own government and our own media and call us names, I'm a little confused because it doesn't jive with the facts that hundreds of thousands of people who obviously aren't as bright as they are coming across
But still
the border.
trying to get in.
Yes.
Right.
What country in the world, and I raise this to anyone because we're very ignorant about our history, what country in the world has welcomed, since its inception, more different varieties and more people in the history of the world than the United States? Right. There isn't one. And they go back to the Roman Empire, you go back to other great things. No country's welcomed because literally it's almost everybody who's here.
So what's your prediction? Is it Biden or somebody
No, I
going
say
to...
barring some.
Hell, I mean, the man is 80-some years old, okay? He could have a health issue, but so couldn't the Republican side with Trump.
Let's just but
But I mean,
yeah.
do you think if he stays healthy, is he the candidate?
Oh, he'd have to be because he's the president.
Okay, and on the Republican
I
side?
don't know.
See, I'm still wondering if there's going to be a correction with Trump.
I mean, correction.
That he's not going to carry 40% over a Nikki Haley.
Yeah, right now is the 40% that he's getting, just that really.
Yeah, but that's all that matters,
side,
though.
right?
That's all that matters. So far, these trials and everything have not weakened him, they've strengthened
No,
him.
because you're pissing people off.
Well,
Right.
you just answered
You
the
know-
question.
Yeah, they're out to get him, right? So people are.
You're answering your
The ones
question.
that are truly tried true to support him are even more angry that.
I would
media
say,
and-
I would
and the
say
court
they're out to
system's
get
what
him. That
happened.
doesn't mean I support him. See, there's people like that too, but the point
Yeah.
is, you'd have to be deaf, dumb, and blind, excuse me, for insulting anyone who's handicapped, is that to realize they're not out to get him. Because these coordinated prosecutions and this everything else on things that were never, anyone else was ever prosecuted on. So as you say, and apparently again, as you just let us know tonight, the statute of limitations doesn't matter, so we just go back forever.
Well, I think until they take the noise out of that whole Republican Party and all those candidates and start honing it down, it's really hard
Yeah.
to see. Because eventually, the supporters of the candidates that are kind of in the noise on the periphery, they're going to want to support a Republican
Yeah.
candidate. So
Yeah.
where do those alliances go to?
Yeah.
Well,
And
I think a lot of the issues, wasn't it your favorite politician, Clinton, that said,
Well-
it's all about the economy, stupid?
Well, it is, but the problem is too, and there's a great, and always been in America, it used to be in the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party, a nationalism. And a nationalism usually means an isolation, non-interventionist policy. So before World War I, before World War II, I mean, until and unless Pearl Harbor happened, there wasn't going to be any United States in the war. And that leads some people to think that Roosevelt plotted this or did whatever, which today in the crazy history, people can believe anything because it'll be printed somewhere. And today, Trump represents that in many ways in the country because of the immigration, because of our aid to the Ukraine, our other foreign policy things, our withdrawal from Afghanistan, which was an utter disaster. So all those things feed the nationalism, which is what Trump is also very much about. America first, or make America great again.
We're almost out of time,
Yeah.
but let me just pose a quick question. Should we be supporting Ukraine?
Yes, of course.
Why?
Yes. Well, that's a long time. We could discuss the next time.
Is it?
Yes, of course.
I just
Because
think from a humanitarian standpoint.
yeah, and I think certainly
And from a practical standpoint?
Well, would you rather support Putin?
Well, that's my point.
Okay, so
So you let him take the Ukraine.
what's next?
Well, he took Crimea, and they said he wouldn't go any further. Now it's the whole Ukraine.
First of all, it's a sign of a degenerate Western society if you allow them to take anything, because their economy's on the ropes, just as China is. And I think we never got into international stuff, but China's facing an incredible demographic disaster and real estate disaster, and even the Russian national gas industry is basically done. So maybe next time we'll talk about the international situation, because I
Absolutely.
think we're in a lot better shape considering.
Last question. You got one answer. Are we better off today than we were 2 years ago?
Oh, no.
I agree. I miss the $2 a gallon gas. I miss the 2% interest rates.
My grocery bill was less, my gas bill was less.
And that's why
The cost
some of
doing
the things
business
you
was less.
say can come back to haunt you. It's about the economy, stupid. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. As always, to our 6 loyal viewers, we appreciate you listening. May God bless. May tomorrow be a better day than today. Good night, all.
Far too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just searching for my soul.